The Whitmore mansion stood tall in the Upper East Side, a marvel of architectural brilliance, chandeliers worth more than cars, walls adorned with Renaissance paintings, and fountains that flowed even in winter. But despite its beauty, it was a cold, hollow place. Not a home. Just a well-decorated cage. Charles Whitmore, now in his late 40s, was a man driven by success. He was on the covers of Forbes, named among the top 10 real estate moguls of the decade. But behind every boardroom triumph was a man running from something, guilt. His daughter, Emily, had been the light of his life. A natural ballerina, she used to spin barefoot across the marble floors, her laughter ringing through the halls like wind chimes. But when Emily was 10, a drunk driver struck their car while Charles was away in Hong Kong for a deal he said was too important to miss. Emily survived. But the accident left her paralyzed from the waist down. And her mother, Isabel, died 3 months later. Of a heart condition, though everyone knew it was grief. Charles buried himself in work. He couldn't bear to face the silence in Emily's eyes. Emily grew up in a palace but felt like a prisoner. Each morning, nannies helped her dress. Tutors came and went. Therapists with kind eyes but cold hands stretched her legs and smiled fake encouragement. But they never saw her. Not really. Until one afternoon, someone knocked gently on her door. Not a maid. Not a nurse. A man in a crisp uniform, holding a bouquet of sunflowers and a shy smile. "Hi, Miss Emily. I saw these in the garden. Thought you might like them." She blinked. "You're the driver, right?" "Yes, ma'am. Miguel. But I used to be a pretty good dancer once." Emily scoffed. "Dancing's for people who can stand." Miguel tilted his head. "Or for those who can feel." Something in her chest moved. Miguel Santos wasn't just a driver. He had dreams too. Back in Santo Domingo, he'd been a dance teacher in a small village. His little sister, Luna, was born with muscular dystrophy. She couldn't walk, but Miguel made sure she danced in his arms every weekend in their dusty backyard. She passed away when she was 12, he once told Emily as they sat under the massive oak tree in the Whitmore garden. "But every time I dance, I feel like she's right here with me." Emily didn't say anything that day. But later, she wheeled herself to her old music box and played the lullaby her mother used to hum. For the first time in years, tears fell, not from pain, but from memory. That evening, she asked Miguel, "Can you teach me how to dance, without dancing?" And so, the ritual began. Every Friday, as the sky turned gold and the mansion staff prepared for the weekend, Miguel and Emily slipped into the indoor garden, a secret glass greenhouse her mother once designed. There, they danced. Miguel twirled beside her wheelchair, guiding her arms, nodding to the rhythm, whispering, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, like a heartbeat. Emily laughed again. Sometimes she cried. But she always asked for, just 5 more minutes. And then, one night, Miguel brought something new, a custom-built dance harness. With the help of her physiotherapist, who was sworn to secrecy, they strapped Emily in, supporting her weight just enough for her to stand with assistance. She placed her trembling hands on Miguel's shoulders, and for the first time in 7 years, she stood. And moved. And felt alive. Miguel wept quietly while she smiled. Charles, meanwhile, noticed small things. The change in Emily's tone. Her sudden interest in music. The way she began asking for dresses again. He assumed it was therapy. Until one night, returning early from a cancelled gala, he walked past the garden. Soft classical music floated through the air. Curious, he stepped closer and stood frozen by what he saw. His daughter, standing. In Miguel's arms, she swayed, giggling like the child she used to be. The chandelier light caught her flushed cheeks, and her eyes sparkled with joy Charles hadn't seen in years. But instead of feeling joy, Charles felt something else. Shame. He had spent years building skyscrapers, yet he hadn't even noticed his daughter learning to smile again. The next morning, Miguel was summoned. He stood respectfully, waiting for the inevitable termination. Charles, seated behind his giant oak desk, didn't speak for a while. He simply looked at a photo on the table, Isabel holding baby Emily. Finally, he asked, "Why didn't you come to me?" Miguel answered, voice calm, "Because she wasn't asking for your money, sir. She was asking for your time." Charles's hand trembled. "I thought I was protecting her, by giving her everything." Miguel gently replied, "Sometimes the only thing a daughter needs is her father's hand to hold." Everything changed after that. Charles began attending her therapy sessions. Not just attending, participating. He practiced the dance harness himself so he could support her. The staff watched in awe as the once distant billionaire slowly became a father again. And then, a miracle, Emily began regaining light sensation in her legs. Doctors called it partial recovery due to consistent therapy, but Emily believed it was something else. Maybe love does heal. 1 year later, on the anniversary of her accident, Charles organized a fundraiser for spinal cord injury research at the New York City Ballet Theatre. At the end of the night, he stepped on stage, thanked everyone, and then said, "But before you go, my daughter has one last performance to offer." The lights dimmed. A spotlight appeared. And out came Emily, in a flowing lavender dress, wheeling herself forward with grace. Miguel stepped behind her, harness in hand. Gasps echoed as Emily stood, one trembling foot after the other, supported by Miguel, and began to move. Every step was imperfect. Every sway fragile. But every heartbeat in that room pounded in rhythm with hers. As the music swelled, Charles watched from the front row, tears streaming down. Emily was not just dancing. She was rising. After the ovation, Charles announced something. "I am proud to introduce the Luna Foundation," he said. "Named after a little girl I never met, who helped save my daughter's soul. And it will be co-chaired by its rightful founders, Emily Whitmore and Miguel Santos." Miguel looked stunned. Charles walked to him, extended his hand, then pulled him into a warm hug. In a world chasing wealth, sometimes it takes a quiet soul to remind us what truly matters: presence, compassion, and love.